and welcome. I'm Andi Mioč and you're watching AnewZ live from Baku. Here are the headlines. Syrian refugees gather at the Turkish border, eager to return home. Algeria summons French ambassador, accusing Paris of hostile actions. 2 Russian oil tankers sink in the Black Sea. Thank you for tuning in. After the fall of Bashar al-Assad's government, Syrian refugees who have been living in Türkiye for more than a decade have finally got a chance to come back home.
Syrians who sought refuge in Türkiye during the 13-year civil war in their home country continue returning to Syria following the fall of Assad's government. Footage shows some of those crossing the Cilvegozu border gate in Türkiye's southern Hatay province on Sunday. Women and children are given priority during the crossing process, with officials interacting with the children while their families' documents are being processed. Muhammad, a 29-year-old Syrian man waiting at Cilvegozu border gate, told reporters that he was on his way back to Aleppo after seeking refuge in Türkiye 10 years ago.
We are returning to Syria now because the Bashar al-Assad regime has fallen. All of us are going back to our country. Hopefully, together, we will rebuild our homeland. We are deeply grateful to Türkiye for hosting us. We will never forget their kindness and will repay it. The Turkish people are our brothers, and they have a special place in our hearts for all the good they have done for us.
During the Syrian civil war, some 4 million Syrians took shelter in Türkiye, more than any other country in the world. Bashar Assad, who served as Syria's president for nearly 25 years, fled to Russia after rebel forces took control of Damascus on December the 8th. The fall of the capital ended the decades-long political dominance of the Ba'ath party in Syria.
Meanwhile, schools have reopened in Damascus as day-to-day life in the Syrian capital gradually resumes, a week after Assad was overthrown.
Students in Syria's capital, Damascus, have returned to classrooms on Sunday. This follows an order by the country's new rebel leaders in their efforts to stabilize the war-torn nation. The reopening of schools happens only a week after armed anti-government rebels belonging to the group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham overthrew Syria's president, Bashar al-Assad. School officials say the school buildings were not damaged during the civil war and expect a favorable turnout.
Everything is fine. We are fully equipped. We worked 2-3 days in order to equip the school with the needed services for the students' safe return to school. First of all, the school was not harmed at all and everything is fine. We have the biggest number of students here and we hope that the rest will come too.
I expect that we have a better relationship with the students because they are young and they have big hopes and ambitions, and we are supposed to encourage them.
The country's new de facto leader, Ahmed al-Shara, faces a massive challenge to rebuild Syria after over a decade of a civil war that has killed hundreds of thousands of people. Officials report of widespread reopening of schools across the country, but some parents are still hesitant to send their children to school due to safety concerns. Some students, however, express optimism about the move.
I am optimistic and very happy. I used to walk on the streets scared that I would get drafted to military service. I used to be afraid when I reached a checkpoint.
These efforts to rebuild Syria come as its neighbors and foreign powers work out a new stance on the country.
The United Nations envoy for Syria has called for a quick end to Western sanctions after the ouster of President Bashar al-Assad to aid Syria's reconstruction. Arriving in Damascus, envoy Geir Pedersen called for urgent action to ease sanctions, highlighting their impact on Syria's rebuilding efforts. He also stressed the importance of ensuring justice and accountability for crimes committed during the civil war.
We need to see that this is fixed quickly. We will hopefully see a quick end to sanctions so that we can see really rallying around building up Syria again. And then, my last point, we need to see, of course, justice and accountability for crimes. And we need to make sure that that goes through a credible justice system, and that we don't see any revenge.
United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the U.S. had direct contact with the rebel faction which overthrew Assad. After speaking on Syria's political transition in Jordan with foreign ministers of Arab nations and Türkiye, along with top EU and UN officials, Blinken said they agreed that the new government should respect the rights of minorities and women, prevent terror groups from taking hold, ensure humanitarian aid reaches those in need, and secure and destroy any remaining Assad-era chemical weapons. Blinken also highlighted the U.S. role in helping Syria in the future.
Yes, we've been in contact with HTS and with other parties. We have impressed upon everyone we've been in contact with the importance of helping find Austin Tice and bringing him home. And we've also shared the principles that I just laid out for our ongoing support, principles, again, that have now been adopted by countries throughout the region and well beyond. And we've communicated those. That's direct contact, yes. Today, the United States and our partners in the region have agreed on a set of shared principles to guide our support for Syria and its people going forward. America and our partners have an important stake in helping the Syrian people chart this new path. We know that what happens inside of Syria can have powerful consequences well beyond its borders, from mass displacement to terrorism. And we know that we can't underestimate the challenges of this moment and in the weeks and months ahead.
On the fresh start for Syria and its rebuilding, we're talking to Zhanat Momynkulov, an international politics expert coming to us from Astana, and in Nevşehir, Melih Demirtaş, a researcher at the Cappadocia University. Welcome, gentlemen. Let's start with the call to lift sanctions. The UN Special Envoy says this will be crucial to bolster reconstruction efforts. Zhanat, what could be the time frame? What needs to happen, and how long would it take to lift sanctions on Syria?
Thank you for having me. The research taking place in the Middle East at the intersection of regional and global conflicts could significantly affect the political map of the region. I think that Turkey now plays a very crucial role, as well as Israel. As Blinken said, they are partners now working together. But at the same time, we have to admit that there's discrepancies in the conflicts, in the conflicts of interests. And I think that Turkey demonstrated its soft power and intelligence and strategic patience during the last 8 years, working with different communities inside Syria. Turkey now tries to build unified, integrated Syria. And I think that it is also important from the viewpoint of the Islamic unity, especially the Sunni communities there. So I think that the Turkey's concern is related to the Kurds in Syria. Turkey wants a unified state, not the federative one, but maybe Israel and other big countries wants a federative structure in Syria, relying on YPG and others. So I think that this rapid change will mean a lot for region's future. Turkey wants to pacify the Kurds and want to include in a state, in a future Syrian state. And also, I think that the future of Syria will depend on the ability of various armed groups to reach a consensus. It also relates to the great powers like United States, Israel, Turkey, Arab countries. I think Kurds, Shiites, Sunnis, Christians, Druze, Alawites all must agree on the future of the country. And I think the HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, might go through the rebranding. And now they try to build the state institutions, but nobody knows what kind of statehood will appear and emerge in the region, because people of Syria now they're fatigued, they had very big traumas. So now the world awaits for the unity. I think that international conference should be held on Syria with the participation of Turkey, Arab countries, all the players. And I hope that the role of Turkey will be central, because Turkey is a Muslim country, a Sunni country, and can impact the local population, and also has a very deep experience in building.
As you said, there are a lot of regional and foreign actors in play here. Melih, let's go over to you and let's get back to the rebuilding efforts in Syria. Who would you say could play the biggest part in the country's reconstruction? We've heard a number of pledges from foreign countries, including Türkiye. And if you would like to touch upon the lifting of sanctions, how could that hasten the process?
Yes, thank you. Thank you also for inviting me again in this important session. We just observed for this last maybe 10 days the rapid process, the rapid reconstruction process in our neighbor country, in Syria. I always repeat in your valuable program that we have this longest border, above 900-kilometer border with our neighbor Syria. And I think we have more than anyone have this right, to have this friendly and well-structured relation with our neighbor Syria. The UN sanctions and lifting of them, I think the special representatives' last visits and the positive words are really welcomed, I think, in Turkish, authorities and bureaucracies. I think so. Tomorrow, with the first workday, we will see, I think, also the explanations of the authorities, but still, the sanctions, especially in such processes, are very harmful for such countries, because these countries are very sensitive. We saw the same unfortunate events, and it was also so painful in Iraq after another dictatorial rule of Saddam Hussein. The same mistakes and the same catastrophic results sometimes for or another neighbor, Iraq, will not be repeated, I think, in Syria. We hope so. Because this is the historical lens of many nations, many ethnic communities. As my colleague said, I agree with him that Türkiye really plays an important role in this reconstruction, in construction sector, in the sector of this education. We still have many Syrian brothers, sisters in our territory, but still we must think about this reconstruction process must going on in the well-being of all the communities. Kurds are the constituent community of this Syrian new territory, we know that. Also Arabic people, Shiites, Alawites, Sunni population. We know that the historical lands of Syria must be reconstructed in a very friendly and democratic way. And we do our best. I think about the last words of our Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan. He also said that the same structuring process will be going on in this friendly process. I think the United Nations, this first step with this lifting of sanctions, will be very positive in this atmosphere.
Well, according to the World Bank, Syria's GDP shrunk for the duration of the civil war by 85% because of the war and debilitating sanctions. Zhanat, some argue that helping Syria now might prove to be a regional opportunity for economic growth. What do you make of that? We are currently having some issues with the connection. Let's go over to Nevşehir and Türkiye. Melih, are you still with us?
I'm with you.
Hi. So we are having some connection issues with Astana. What do you make of Syria's rebuilding efforts being an economic growth opportunity for the entire region?
Yes, the problem is still going on. First of all, we must think about these problems in the south of Syria. I mean, these Israeli attacks. Still, it's destabilizing the region. We know that. I mean, Türkiye has given much efforts, I mean, maybe more than any country, economically, also to the population. But in terms of territorial grievances, I think these southern regions still continue this economy, I think Syrian economy, negatively. And still, as my friend, colleague in Astana said that Israel sometimes can have this negative effects on Syrian economy at that sense. So we still must find this stabilizing environment in terms of this southern crisis. I mean, this Palestine issue. I mean, the still very humanitarian catastrophic cases in Gaza. And also Lebanon, still we don't know. We hope so that ceasefire will continue. But if these southern regions and if this Israeli attacks in Golan Heights, I mean, will not stop, these economic loops and these economic reforms cannot be continued so easily. We think so. But in the northern part, I mean, in our borderlands between Turkey and Syria, we already see that these northern cities are still continue to develop, although the authoritarian regime of Bashar Assad. We did our best to construct these lands, to make some, of course, economic and educative support to the land and the communities there. And now, with the new understanding of some democratic understanding of different groups, although they have some disparities, we know that, differences between themselves, they can find these democratic solutions inside themselves. And after the government, I think they put a limit till March 2025. But still, we have this 4 months, 5 months, and it's 4 and 5 months, we can have these talks with our neighborlands, Syria, and this interim government. And if the Israeli government, if they also allow to make some stops about this military harsh attacks sometimes, we can think that the economy will also go a bit very faster terms. We need the support of also Russia. We need the support of our another important neighbor, Iran. And of course, United States and the Western countries cannot be excluded in this process.
Well, we go back to Astana. Zhanat, glad we have you back online. What are your thoughts on this? Of course, after all the hostilities and in the south of the country as well, there are over 6 million Syrians that were forced out of their country because of the civil war. Do you believe that their return and the return of the workforce might hasten the process of reconstruction and rebuilding Syria, and could they maybe bring expertise and investments from the countries they found refuge in?
Thank you. Yes, I think it is a historic moment for all the Syrians, which now lives in Turkey, some of them in Europe and other countries. But I think that it's a little bit early to return to Syria, because Syria now should be stabilized first, and the mutual increase between different kind of communities should be strengthened. And of course, then reconstruction process will begin. And at this point, the majority of these Syrian refugees can return to their homes, and they will work for their homeland as Israel did before. So I think that with the help of Turkey, China, Arab countries, United States, and other sponsors, Syria can be rebuilt again. And I hope that the future of this country will be brighter than it was many years ago.
Zhanat, Melih, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us and sharing your insights and opinions on the developing situation in Syria. Algeria has summoned France's ambassador in protest over what it described as repeated hostile actions by French intelligence targeting Algerian state institutions, according to local media. Reportedly, Algerian officials presented alleged evidence of French intelligence involvement in destabilizing activities, including attempts to smuggle weapons and ammunition into Algeria and efforts to recruit former extremists for operations targeting Algerian security. Paris has not yet commented on the allegations. The acting president of South Korea, Prime Minister Han Duck-seo, said his focus is to stabilize the situation and bring back normalcy for the people. Han took over the office yesterday after Parliament impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol over his imposition of martial law. Yoon was suspended after some members of his own People Power Party voted with the opposition. The decision still needs to be ratified by the Constitutional Court. Thousands of anti-Yoon protesters celebrated outside the National Assembly after the impeachment motion passed, with chants and fireworks. Day after the president was impeached, South Koreans are divided on whether it was the right thing to do.
Seoul residents are divided after the impeachment of South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, as a result of the second vote on Saturday night by the opposition-led parliament over his short-lived attempt to impose martial law, a move that had shocked the nation. Analysts have warned that Yoon's impeachment is unlikely to end the political turmoil. While many citizens claim they are glad and can sleep soundly at night, some oppose this decision.
I was so relieved that the impeachment notice was passed. I could sleep without worry. Since it's literally acting president, I hope he will exercise the minimum power to operate the country stably rather than actively be involved in state affairs.
As a citizen, I'm really sad the impeachment motion was passed. I really can't stand to see the illegal lawmakers who were elected by fraudulent elections making evil laws, and now this huge opposition party is running wild on their own.
South Korean president was impeached after a decision to impose a martial law, which was criticized by the opposition. After roughly 2 weeks of political crisis, Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment made him the second conservative president in a row to be impeached. Yoon survived a first impeachment vote last weekend, when his party largely boycotted the vote, depriving parliament of a quorum. The political turmoil in South Korea sparked several anti- and pro-president protests.
2 Russian oil tankers with 29 crew members on board have sunk in the Black Sea amid bad weather and are now leaking oil, Russian authorities have said. Video posted on Telegram by the Federal Service for Supervision of Natural Resources shows one of the tankers broken in half and sinking amid a heavy storm in the Kerch Strait. TASS news agency reported that at least 1 crew member is believed to have died. Australia says the 5 remaining members of the so-called Bali 9 drug ring have returned home after almost 20 years in Indonesian prison. Under a deal with the Indonesian government, the men have had the rest of their life sentences commuted on humanitarian grounds, on the condition that they continue rehabilitation in Australia. The case began in 2005 when Indonesia caught 9 young Australians trying to smuggle over 8 kilos of heroin out of Bali. The 2 ringleaders of the plot were executed in 2015. One of the members had their jail sentence commuted and another died of cancer. Pope Francis has made a historic visit to Corsica today, marking the first time a pontiff has traveled to the French Mediterranean island.
Pope Francis landed in Ajaccio, Corsica for a short visit. This is the first recorded trip by a pope to the French Mediterranean island and marks his 47th foreign visit since becoming pontiff in 2013. During his stay, the Pope is expected to address a conference on popular religiosity across the Mediterranean region. Pope Francis will also meet Cardinal François Xavier Bustillo, who has led the Catholic Church in Corsica since 2021 and was made a cardinal by the Pope in 2023. This visit is part of Pope Francis's continued focus on the Mediterranean region, following past trips to Malta, Lesbos and Lampedusa. Corsica, known for its mountainous terrain, is the 4th largest island in the Mediterranean.
That's all we have for you for now. Thank you for tuning in and keep watching AnewZ.